Programming on the air, stream live, and in podcast. Find out all the on-air and online platforms you can hear WTIM by going to TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome into the WTIM Pana Morning Show right here on WTIM, your information station. Brought to you by our title sponsor, People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, along with Pizza Man, Norin's Hardware, Your Pana Save-A-Lot, Whiskey Bill's Saloon and Liquor Emporium, the City of Pana, and Locked and Loaded Limited. On the phone line with us in this first segment here, we have Lauren Mahan. She's a speech language pathologist at Pana Community Hospital. Lauren, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for taking the time and breaking all these things down for us today. Let's just get started off generally when we're talking speech language pathology. What do you specialize in? How do you help out the community?
Yeah, so looking at speech language pathology, a lot of the times, when people hear speech, they just think we work on, speech sounds, helping kids talk, things like that. That's a big part of our job, but there's also a lot more. A speech therapist can work in a home setting. They can work hospitals, clinics, schools, but we can work from, babies all the way up to adults. So there's a wide range of clientele that we have. As far as different areas that we work on, we do work on speech sounds, but we also work on language, voice, fluency, cognition, which would involve memory, problem solving, attention. So sometimes after a stroke, those are big things that we focus on. We also work on swallowing. So there's a whole wide scope of practice under speech language pathology.
Wow, yeah, a whole lot of things.
Yeah.
Just within the practice itself, and all the different settings and places this can be deployed there. So it sparks a whole lot of questions for me. But before we get into all that, how long have you been, Lauren, with Pana Community Hospital?
I just hit a year at the end of June.
Very cool, very cool.
Yeah.
How has that year treated you?
It's been really great. It's been a really good learning experience. Prior to this, I did the school side of speech therapy for 7 years.
Very cool.
So I made the transition to the medical side. So it's been fun.
Okay, yeah, and that's definitely one of those settings you mentioned there, whether it be a hospital, a school, or a clinic. There, it's interesting to see where all the different places speech pathology can be seen. What did the schooling requirements look like to become a speech path?
So you have to have a master's degree, so 6 years of school, and then that master's program also includes a clinical internship, and then you also have to pass a national examination called the Praxis. And then your first year is also under a supervised speech language pathologist. It's called your clinical fellowship year. So that's where you get signed off on all of your competencies in order to be ready to fully be a fully licensed speech language pathologist.
Sure. In my experience speaking with speech pathologists, some just graduating with me, a lot of them had a base of education. They wanted to work with kids. Was that kind of your outlook at the beginning?
Well, I originally went into it for the medical side of speech therapy. Those jobs can be kind of hard to come by, especially in smaller, communities. I did love my time in the schools, but my goal long term was to get back to the medical side. My grandpa, whenever he was, I was probably, I don't know, junior high maybe, he had home health speech therapy, and that's kind of what got me involved in it. I thought it was super cool. His speech therapist came and worked with him on swallowing, and that made me want to do speech therapy. So.
Okay. You mentioned a couple of different other reasons why people might need a speech language pathologist. Can you get into a few more of those?
Yeah. So a lot of the times, big things people think about as far as the adult side would be any sort of neurological condition, a stroke, a brain injury. Typically with outpatient, we'll get referrals from hospitals if they've, need continuation of services after the hospital. There's also, a lot of people don't think about this, but head and neck cancer patients are a big part of our population. Typically radiation affects your swallowing muscles. So a lot of those patients have trouble swallowing after radiation and chemo affecting their throat muscles.
Wow. Okay.
So that's a big, kind of piggybacking off of that. We have the ability here to do outpatient video swallow studies. And that's a really great service to have here locally. So if somebody is noticing that they're having trouble swallowing for whatever reason, you're able to get a referral and come here for that. So typically it's like an x-ray, so we can visually see what's going on. Because a lot of the times if we know, okay, you're coughing, but why? So we can't treat it if we can't figure out what's actually going on. So
Wow.
that's a great service to have here.
Absolutely. It's become very clear to me as I've grown up that speech pathology is not it's not just for the school ages. That's kind of what I was thinking
No.
about. Kids that
Yep.
couldn't pronounce their R's and their S's,
Yep.
they got help from a speech path.
Yep.
But as you're talking about the neurological things that can happen, stroke and many things that can change your speech pathologists, speech language pathologists are needed at all ages. Is that right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, we have patients from, we can literally have newborns up to 99-year-olds. You know what I mean? And that's the thing too. When we go to school, we have to learn. You learn the school side of it. You learn everything.
Wow.
And so it is nice to have variety. That way, if you want to switch settings, you have a lot of choices as far as where you can work, who you can work with.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very diverse field.
Absolutely. You just spoke on newborns even. Are there early signs of speech problems?
So with a lot of times with newborns, which I haven't done this, but if they're having trouble feeding, they might need feeding therapy right after, as soon as they're born. I also did on the side early intervention, which is typically birth to 3, and that's where you go into the homes and work with the families and and the little kids on if they're not talking as much as they should be, and that's something I stress too. If you notice that your kid, you have any idea that they might not be talking as much as they should, to mention that to your doctor, because the sooner you start working on it, the better.
Describe some of those challenges that might come to the folks that have spoke well their entire lives and it might have been hit by an illness or a single thing that might have caused them to lose their regular speech patterns. Is there any resistance? What does that look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes if, a lot of the time, so let's just talk about a stroke. A patient might have what's called aphasia. And if they just have expressive aphasia, they're literally understanding everything that you're saying to them, but they can't say what they want to say, which is super frustrating. Yeah. And they'll tell you, like, I know the word, I just can't get it out. And so that can cause a lot of frustration, aggravation, which rightfully so. I always try to just provide education to my patients. Like, you had a stroke. This is common. You're making progress. So typically that, education, positive reinforcement, which is why I love like the neuro side of it, because it can be hard, but it's also very rewarding when you see them start, making progress.
Sure.
Because our goal is to get them back to as close as they were, before their event.
Sure. This is Lauren Mahan. She's a speech language pathologist over at Pana Community Hospital. We've been learning all about speech pathology, the different ages, different settings you can find this in. It's all been really interesting here. Lauren, before we take our quick time out here, any final words to kind of wrap up this segment for the listeners out there?
I think just, wanting everybody to be aware of the services that we offer here in Pana. It's a great hospital, and, having something local, and just wanting people to take advantages of the services that we're offering here.
Amazing. We're going to learn much more from Lauren Mahan, our speech language pathologist over at Pana Community Hospital. After this quick timeout, this WTIM Pana morning show is brought to you by our title sponsor, People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, along with Pizza Man, Norin's Hardware, your Pana Save-A-Lot, Whiskey Bill's Saloon and Liquor Emporium, the City of Pana, and Locked and Loaded Limited. Thanks so much to our live stream sponsors as well, People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark. We are streaming live on Facebook at Taylorville Daily News and on YouTube at WTIM TV. We will be right back on WTIM, your information station.
Your information station, WTIM.
Attention hunters and gun owners, you must get to Locked and Loaded Sportsman Paradise in Pana. Take the short drive and shop Central Illinois' premier gun shop. Come see the huge inventory of firearms, ammo, hunting supplies, and accessories. In stock now, custom designed Locked and Loaded t-shirts and headgear. Brush up on your shooting skills at the indoor range featuring 7 shooting lanes. If it has to do with firearms or hunting, you'll find it at Locked and Loaded on Route 16 East in Pana. Locked and Loaded, open 6 days a week. Like them on Facebook. Noren's Hardware is a local family-owned store offering a wide selection of quality hardware supplies at competitive prices. Whether you need plumbing supplies or electrical supplies, you're sure to find what you need at Noren's Hardware store, including ice melt, shovels, gloves, heat tape, pipe insulation, portable heaters, and propane to get ready for the winter months. Our staff is committed to providing outstanding customer service and is ready to assist you. Visit our store at 55 Main Street in Pana today.
If Jansen's Heating and Air gave your furnace one of those fancy genetic tests, what would be the results?
62% old,
33% inefficient,
and 5% noisy.
You know, uncovering your heating and air's past can greatly impact your future comfort.
So now's the time to rejuvenate your senior system with Jansen's Heating and Air.
Our talented techs alter your comfort system's genetic code to slow the aging process and stretch the life of your heating and air.
It's like twisting a spigot on the fountain of youth.
We know how to calibrate, combobulate, and reconfigure all the necessary parts to ensure that your furnace outlives its ancient ancestors.
Increase the efficiency, safety, and reliability of your elderly AC and old-fashioned furnace.
If your comfort's lineage is in danger of extinction, let Jansen's upgrade your DNA.
DNA?
Doesn't that stand for darn nice air?
No. No, it doesn't.
No. Anyway, call Jansen's Heating and Air, 562-5201.
JansonsHeating.com.
Here are the contest rules for our stations. We allow one person per household to win any prize from the radio stations in a 30-day period. Unless otherwise stated, all prizes to Christian County winners are to be picked up within 2 weeks at the studios at 918 East Park in Taylorville. Our new office hours are 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. weekdays. Winners outside of Christian County will have their prizes mailed. Any cash prize is mailed within 30 days of winning. Only if cash winners call our business line within 2 weeks of their name being drawn to provide their mailing address. Employees and their families of the Miller Media Group are not eligible to participate or win any contest.
Pastor Brian Moore here from Locust Grove Church near Assumption. We are alive and so worth the drive. Find directions to our church and watch our video podcast by clicking our icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Lauren Asali here, owner of Schaefer Perfetti and Asali Funeral Home, Taylorville's only locally owned and operated funeral home. We honor lives and celebrate memories. Find out all about our services we provide by clicking on our icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome back into the WTIM Pana Morning Show. This time we're speaking with Lauren Mahan, speech language pathologist over at Pana Community Hospital. Very informative one this time. This one's brought to you by our title sponsor, and all of them brought to you by our title sponsor, People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, along with Pizza Man, Noren's Hardware, your Pana Save-A-Lot, Whiskey Bills, Saloon and Liquor Emporium, the City of Pana, and Locked and Loaded Limited. With Laura Mahan in that first half, we really did learn all about speech pathology, the different places and the different ages where it can be useful. Let's talk a little bit about with Pana Community Hospital and those outpatient speech services. What are the processes look like for actually getting a hold of you, Lauren?
So typically, as far as getting set up here for an evaluation, the first step would be a referral, which would come from your primary care doctor or a specialty doctor. And then we would call and get you set up for the initial evaluation. And typically the secretaries here will call to make sure your insurance doesn't need a prior authorization. And then once we submit the evaluation, we'll get an answer back from your insurance, and they'll tell us, how many approved visits you get. And that kind of starts the process there.
Okay, perfect. So my next
Pretty
question.
smooth. Yep, it's easy.
Cool. Okay. My next question would be if it is that easy, and you talk to your primary care provider,
Yeah.
it does seem that easy. My next question would be when, if we're thinking about children at the beginning stages and parents looking at their child, maybe questioning to themselves if my child does need some speech language intervention here, what are some of the signs or who can they contact?
So typically, the earlier the better. There are the early intervention services which are provided in the home. The issue with that, sometimes there's not local speech therapists that are available to provide those services. So, I can see 2-year-old, 3-year-olds here. The process, if you feel like, typically what will happen, especially if it's like a 2-month, 2-year checkup, the doctor will go through, kind of like communication milestones with the parents. So if that'll kind of trigger a red flag. If they're not, by age 2, they should be using 50 words. So if they're nowhere close to that, that would trigger that referral for a speech language evaluation.
Okay, so there's some clear milestones that you should be hitting there.
Yep.
Okay, perfect there. You talked about a little about when we're thinking speech pathology, or at least when I'm thinking about just the sounds of the words, but you spoke on a plethora of things with voice and fluency and
Uh-huh.
cognition. These all go one after the other. Well, what do you target first?
So typically, when we get the referral, it'll kind of give us an idea of what area might be impacted. So if it says, the patient has been diagnosed with a cognitive impairment, then we would know we're looking at, memory, problem solving, attention, a voice disorder. So if we get a Parkinson's patient, typically their vocal cords aren't working right. So we know we're going to probably be targeting voice. So kind of getting a good case history, before you even get the patient in front of you to figure out what exactly you are looking at.
Yeah. You mentioned swallowing quite a bit. Where does that
Yeah.
work in?
So that is very common. Anywhere from a brain injury to typically after a stroke, that's very common to have some sort of swallowing trouble after a stroke. Also, like I mentioned, the head and neck cancer, that's kind of a population that we're seeing more and more of. So that would be, and so a lot of those times those patients are on what we would call a modified diet. So they might be on thickened liquids. They might only be able to eat soft food. So our goal is to work with them on exercises and strategies to hopefully get them back or closer to a normal diet.
Wow. Is there any disconnect when you're speaking strictly with neurological and maybe even just the way your jaw is working and your brain is not responding the way it should be to your mouth? These patients know exactly what they want to say, but they can't say it. Do you have to call for another specialist, work with someone that knows the brain and how to do that? Or speech pathology, you can really combine everything?
Yep, pretty much we can combine everything. So typically, a lot of the times what we would call word retrieval is a problem with stroke patients. So we have typically we look at kind of a two-sided thing. What ways can we kind of work on rehabilitating this, but then also try to teach them strategies to kind of compensate for those deficits in the meantime. And then also a big part of it too is just educating both the patient and the family on, hey, right now they might need extra time to think about what they want to say. They can get there, but it's just going to take them a while.
Sure.
So yeah, I love the neuro side of it. The brain is just very interesting to me, and I love those kind of patients.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's my understanding that the brain is still a little bit of a mystery to our scientists out there,
Yeah.
but you've got the voice to brain part down pretty well there. So, so we're happy about that.
Yes.
That's really, really amazing. Talk to me a little bit about the being without a speech path. What kind of challenges does that bring in their school time?
Yeah. So, I mean, the big, correlation between speech and reading and writing, right? Because if a lot of the times if a kid isn't pronouncing a sound correctly, you also see those errors transfer over to reading and writing. So again, crucial, the earlier the better you start, to get those areas targeted so that you don't see those deficits, kind of carry over to other parts of their academics.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. If they're saying the letter wrong, they're definitely writing it out incorrectly too. It's just a lot of problems.
Yep. So typically, because and sometimes it might just be a quick fix, like a kid just needs to be shown something really quickly, but sometimes, if it's more severe, it can have more of an academic impact as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we have to go here, Lauren, we got about 2 minutes left. Is there a website or a phone number people can call or visit to start their journey with speech pathology?
Yeah. So the outpatient number, my direct line, if anybody has specific questions, is 562-6456.
Okay.
And I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody would have.
Perfect. Are you anywhere online people can find just more info, general info?
PanaHospital.com.
Perfect.
And then it's the Rehab and Wellness Center.
Okay. Click one of those tabs there, Rehab Wellness, and then you'll find it all. This is Lauren Mahan over at Pana Community Hospital. She's a speech language pathologist. We learned a whole lot from her. Lauren, do you have any final thoughts for our listeners out there?
Just super excited to be here in Pana. Like I said, it's great. I feel like to have these services available locally, and just hoping people take advantage of the outpatient, and then also just remembering that we do have the option to do those outpatient video swallow studies here as well.
Absolutely. And one more time, can you just we have about 30 seconds left.
Yep.
Can you hit that one more time, those swallow surveys?
Yes. So if you feel like, for whatever reason, if you notice that you're having trouble when you're eating and drinking, you're coughing, or you feel like you're getting choked up, that's definitely something that's worth mentioning to your doctor. and then they can get you referred here for that study, and then we can hopefully help figure out what's going on and treat it.
Just perfect. Lauren, thank you so much for taking the time
Yes,
today.
thank you.
Absolutely.
Have a great day.
You as well. Lauren Mahan, speech language pathologist over at Pana Community Hospital. This WTIM Pana morning show is brought to you by our title sponsor, People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. Along with Pizza Man, Norton's Hardware, your Pana Save-A-Lot, Whiskey Bill's Saloon and Liquor Emporium, the City of Pana, and Locked and Loaded Limited. Live stream brought to you by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better. With Landmark, I'm Tim Zalabak, your host of the WTIM Morning Show. Thank you for tuning in.
With SRN News, I'm Rich Thomason.